We've been planning this visit for a while, and early on, I shared my goals for this experience. On the one hand, I wanted to explain to everyone here in El Paso what it is we as the governing board do. I lead efforts to figure out what topics should be assessed on the nation's report card. My colleagues around the table here work on the design of the assessments and reporting the results. But what I really want to share with all of you, how does the nation's report card affect us all? How do we understand the knowledge and skills our most vulnerable learners have in critical subjects like reading and mathematics? How can we work to improve educational outcomes for everyone using NAEP as a resource? And on the other hand, I want my fellow governing board members to learn about the unique experiences of growing up in a border town and of teaching and reaching students in El Paso, Texas. We face challenges, but we face them together. The stories you will hear soon from our student and parent panelists will be unforgettable.
Thank you for spending time with us. We, of course, visited two of your schools yesterday. It was amazing. I was particularly impressed by, for lack of a better term, what we call back in Michigan, what I consider innovation in dual enrollment. And the way you all have thought about giving credits simultaneously at the higher ed level and at the high school level. Can you talk a little bit about what you've learned from that and how other states could translate that? Are there special things about the relationship that the district had with the university or vice versa that we need to focus on to try to do something like that?
I think, like you, when I came from California, I found that to be something unique. We do have a tremendous relationship with the local community college, Dr. William Serrata, prior to him, Dr. Richard Rhodes, and then, of course, with the University of Texas in El Paso. And one of the things that I think drives not just the importance, but the necessity of having these dual credit programs in early college high schools is the recognition that we work with a lot of students who have historically not had a good experience in the public school system. And a lot of, notwithstanding a lot of the challenges that they have either at home relative to being economically recessed. And when I say economically recessed, I'm not talking about socioeconomically disadvantaged. That's usually defined by eligibility for a free or reduced lunch. I'm talking about generational poverty. We call it hyper poverty. To qualify for a free lunch, a family of four typically needs to make about $38,000 or less. And we have families, especially along the river, that make closer to $11,000, $12,000 a year. And one of the things that that I think we believe is an impediment is any self-belief that they can actually gain admittance and enrollment into post-secondary institutions. So I think what drives the need to provide these opportunities for these students, these post-secondary opportunities, is the importance of helping these students understand that they can succeed at the next level. But if we wait until they graduate from high school and go through the entire process, many of them would not get the opportunity. So we try to provide the opportunity as early as possible. It creates the confidence and the momentum that they need once they recognize that they're as capable, if willing, as anyone else to perform at a very high level. And you'll meet some of those students today once they graduate from our high schools, and that has been the case. The other thing is that this region, Region 19, has the highest percentage of students anywhere in Texas who actually complete an Associate of Arts degree or an Associate of Science degree using either a dual credit model or an early college high school model. So they don't squander the opportunity. We've decided as a school board and as a school to make the investment. We pay for their tuition, their books, the online programs, and in return, they show us their gratitude by being very successful and moving forward. And so it's something that's really just become part of what we do in our school district.
Any other questions? Andrew?
Thank you. I also, like my colleagues, visited your schools yesterday. I was so impressed with the energy of the students and the dedication of the teachers. So thank you again for those visits. So one of my colleagues at the Graduate School of Education at Harvard is named Roberto Gonzalez, and he wrote a book called Lives in Limbo about the pressures that many students face sort of undocumented. And I just wonder how you think about that, right? When the mission of the school is to educate its youth, but the documentation status indicates that there are some additional pressures that these young people face. So how do you think about that in your schools, and how do you support every student who comes through your doors?
Yeah, I think because of the uniqueness of the region and the fact that not this school district or any school district in this region has ever taken any interest in whether a student is documented or not. We recognize that there are a fair number of students out there, but we don't acknowledge it internally or out in the open. I know that families and their students, their children, at times when the political rhetoric and thought across the country may be negative, critical, detrimental to those students who may not be documented. I know that we've always made it a point to have the type of meetings and communication with our community to reassure them that of two things. One, we have no interest in engaging in that conversation or that narrative, and two, no one is allowed on our school property without our consent, including Border Patrol and law enforcement for any other reason than a criminal act. So we try and insulate our children, our students and their families from that rhetoric that's out there. And it's white noise, I know it's out there, and I know not everybody agrees with that, but we look at them as our children. It's a child, and our role is to try and change the trajectory of that child's life, their quality of life, their economic potential and prosperity, and that's what we focus on, and I think that's why we've been so successful.
Anybody else get more?
In Colorado, where I'm coming from, there seems to be issues with teacher retention. We have an open position at my school, and we have one applicant. And just wondering how you, as a district and the community, deal with teacher retention and just training your teachers so that the burnout doesn't happen so quickly.
As a district, we've been, because we're geographically limited, we're landlocked, and we have an older population of residents. So we've been in a pattern of declining enrollment for about 30 years. And I've got an amazing team that works as part of the budget development timeline to reconcile the ledger. So we don't have a problem keeping teachers or finding teachers. And you'll find that the two, I think, strongest professions or industries, notwithstanding what Mayor Margo shared relative to commerce and those type of things, are in the healthcare industry and in the teaching profession industry. And UTEP and New Mexico State University, Sol Ross University, they do a great job of providing not just the number of teachers that we need, but the type of teachers that we need, because you really have to have a unique DNA to work in an El Paso school. And we have the benefit of probably having 9 out of every 10 teachers who were at one time students, either in El Paso or southern New Mexico. So they understand better than most what it's like to be that student, and I think that comes in, it's very helpful in terms of trying to tailor and provide a customized experience for every student in the area. which is very unlike what it was like when I was in California, where you have teachers coming from everywhere, multiple languages, religions. I think it's a far more difficult environment in Los Angeles, for example, or in the Silicon Valley, where I was the county superintendent, than to have this, I think I called it a petri dish yesterday, where you can really focus on what these kids need and emerge with best practices around English language acquisition, accelerated academic acquisition, the type of tools that these kids need. And we have the kind of faculty and staff in this community that brings the heart and the determination to make it happen for these kids.
My name is Angela Lopez. I'm a student at Valle Verde College High School, and I just want to say thank you for choosing El Paso. El Paso, I want to tell you, has great Mexican food, so don't miss out on that.
Good morning. My name is Edward Calderon and I'm from Riverside High School. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pedro Amaya Mendoza and I'm a sophomore at Dartmouth College.
Hi everyone, thank you for having me today. My name is Tyrone McDuffie. I attend Parkland High School as a freshman student. I was born and raised in El Paso, and let me tell you something, El Paso is a great community with great people, and I hope you guys enjoy yourselves for the rest of this board meeting.
Good morning, my name is Jesus Quezada. I'm very honored and humbled to be here with you all. I'm a student at the University of Texas at El Paso, a music major. I was born in Mexico, brought here at about 4, so I was raised here. So I consider myself an El Pasoan. Thank you.
Alright, so I just want to start off with my story, which is the story of the majority of students here in El Paso. Every day since first grade, my mom would wake us up in the morning at 4 a.m., make some breakfast, really delicious breakfast, and drive 1 to 3 hours from our house in Juarez to our school in El Paso. And that's the story of a lot of students, not only here in El Paso, but in a lot of the border cities. And I had the privilege to have my mom who would take us driving, but I saw many other kids that were younger than me, with their older siblings, maybe my age, crossing by themselves in the bridge. And I just thought of how fast they had to grow up, how they had to confront the adversity of simply getting to school was their first and not only the one problem that they had to face. Starting with transportation, school was not just a bus ride. School was a goal that they had, and school was something that they wanted to do. And that, for me, creates students that have a hunger for success. And that's where my story starts. My mom would drive us every day to school from 1 to 3 hours in the traffic of the International Bridge. And one day, she had to renovate her visa and she applied for residency. But she was denied for a false positive tuberculosis test. And she had to stay behind in Mexico. But my brothers and I had to keep on going to school, right? So I found myself in the same position of the kids that I saw crossing by themselves. And it's a really hard position. We had to wake up by ourselves, we had to walk by ourselves, we had to have our documentation with the Border Patrol. And not only that, but after we crossed the border, we had to find a way to get to school. It was either by a friend, getting a taxi, or even the school bus. Many of the students here come without knowing English, and they learn it. It happens through phases, actually. Coming from Mexico, you think that no one here speaks Spanish. Everyone speaks English, and you will never be able to find the restroom, which is kind of scary. But actually, for example, in my high school, 92.3% of our students are Hispanic. And not only that, but 80% of our staff is Hispanic. So we have Hispanic students with Hispanic role models that help us through this tough process. Without that, we couldn't be able to do that. And so starting off by learning the language, you feel lonely, but then you realize that in El Paso, you have a really supportive community where you can learn really safely and learn the language rather quickly or slowly. I still have my accent, but every day I try to improve. For example, in my school, I do the announcements every Monday and Wednesday. I mess up here and there, but it's a challenge that I put myself daily. And it's just the little adversities that every other student in the United States wouldn't have to face if they weren't in a Mexican border. And so there are processes in which it gives you a drive to become successful. 4 years ago, I had the privilege to be accepted in the Valle Verde ECHS High School, and it was the best decision I had made. The school not only provides their students with iPads, but they provide free education for an associate's at the El Paso Community College. That means that they provide free tuition, free textbooks, free iPads, and free psychological support, because we need that. And last semester, I graduated with my associates in biology, and this semester I'm attending the University of Texas at El Paso. Really interesting class with Dr. Han and Dr. Khan, Intro to Neuroscience. I'm having a blast in my education. Last summer, actually, I was accepted into an undergraduate research program, and it was fascinating. Dr. Narayan researches the link between Alzheimer's and Parkinson's through amyloid beta model proteins, and I never thought I would have the chance to do that. And I don't know if I would have had the chance to do that if I stayed in Mexico. El Paso has really been a place where I can succeed rather than something else. And I really look into our future, not only mine, but I see excellent students in my school, excellent students in my city, and all across our nation. For example, everyone here that we have today. So thank you for listening to me.
Okay, so hearing her story reminds me a lot of my story. As a parent, you see the other side of that. Parents always, for myself, driving my son to extracurricular activities, always being there with him, regardless of the challenges that we face. Ryan grew up with me, a single mom, in a very low-income household. When they ask me what challenges the border has in raising a successful student, it's really hard for me to answer that question because I see the opportunities that it provides. And I see opportunity, I see success in our children, in our students, and it does take a village. The responsibility lies in me as a parent, but I'm not alone being a single parent. I have exceptional teachers that my son had the privilege to be taught by. Ryan faced a lot of challenges, but one thing that he did not face was not having his mother there. So when I hear stories like this of where you see kids crossing, being alone, me and Ryan would see children after school playing ball, playing together, latchkey kids. And I was one growing up. So it was my priority to give my son the opportunities and change his story. I broke the cycle. I attended college for many years, but I never graduated. And I am going back to college. I am a junior at UTEP, and I am so excited to start my time. And I'm going to say it again. I'm putting it out there in the universe. I will be graduating UTEP 2022 while my son graduates Harvard 2022. important for our children, especially along the border. But we have many resources here that help us be successful. Again, being a single mom, I was not alone. We faced homelessness. There was times that we didn't have running water. We had to go shower at my mom's house. There was times that he would get out of school and he would be recognized for some achievement, and we had to stay parked in the school parking lot because I didn't have gas to go get him an after-school snack. But challenges are only where you choose to place them. There's opportunities, there's learning, and with those struggles come success. And El Paso is a very strong community with a lot of adversity. And him being where he's at, his upbringing here has given him the ability to be with different types of people, different cultures, different backgrounds, and that's only going to enrich his studying where he's at. So thank you very much. El Paso is a great place. A lot of people raise their hand that it's your first time. I hope you come back.
My story is like Cynthia's. My mom was the only parent for me, and she didn't have family either, so we only relied on her. And I've been growing up in El Paso for 6 years. Those 6 years were amazing because there's amazing staff, like she said. Coaches would help us give me a ride home, or some cases to a shelter when we were, unfortunately, my mom wasn't able to pay off the rent. So coaches will play a huge role in my academic and sports-wise, where they'll give us rides to school or to the house where my mom was able to be working. It's some challenges we have to face, but we overcome those challenges to be successful in life. Those process molds us to being something bigger in the future. So like Ms. Cynthia said, the teachers play a huge role. It's not always about family, but blood relatives. Teachers played a huge role in me. My architecture teacher helps me a lot. And right now I'm currently working at a Dantec, part with the architecture firm of Riverside High School. So it's a huge thing teachers do in helping us involve in something bigger than we are. Sorry, thank you.
So, as I said, I'm currently a sophomore at Dartmouth College. Dartmouth has an interesting system where we don't have semesters, but we have quarters. So I had a couple of terms to come back, and I went back to my old high school, Ysleta High School, and I'm currently a tutor there. And it's interesting to see the other side of the coin now that I'm teaching instead of being educated. I was born in El Paso. My parents are undocumented. We moved around Texas quite a bit in my younger years. We came back to El Paso when I was 11 after my grandfather passed. And my parents had some difficulty coming and crossing, and that's a struggle for undocumented parents who want to see their kids succeed. A couple of years ago, we had this view of Hispanics that wasn't very becoming because of things that were said about our culture, about the things we do, about who we are as a people. And that was disturbing to us as a community, to hear those things coming from people in power. And I like to think that we're better than that we overcome such problems in our community. I'm a American first generation college student, and I'm low income. I didn't have much, and my parents thought I wouldn't have a lot of opportunities in Juarez. So growing up here, I always did my best with the hope that I would pay off, and with the hope that I would make my parents proud, knowing that they always felt trapped in a place that wasn't their home, because it's not really as much as they want it to be. And I eventually started doing well in school. My second grade teacher wanted to put me in a special ed class because I didn't know the word candy when I got to school. And with time, I got the hang of English. With time, I became the captain of Haiku. It's an academic club. I started in other academic clubs like Academic Decathlon, UIL. I became the president of the National Honor Society. I started becoming enrolled in everything except sports. And I eventually got accepted to Dartmouth, which was great. And you see that most of the time here, it's mostly Hispanic people, so there's some diversity, but not much. And the opposite, the same thing could be said there, that there's a lot of people of one color and not too much diversity, but it's still great. It's a great opportunity. And now that I'm teaching again, and I won't be for long, I'm going back after spring break, I'm seeing how our teachers can actually make a difference, how our government and how our school systems can make a difference, so I thank you all for that. I believe that most students in our schools have every single opportunity they need to succeed. I never felt that I was left behind. I never felt that if I gave effort, teachers would look down upon me as someone inferior to my other students there. It always seemed like I would be able to succeed if only I gave an effort. And I think regardless of how everything is going on nationally, I think, first of all, I want to thank you for doing that I felt that I could succeed, and I feel that most kids can succeed if they give an effort, and I think a lot of times that's a challenge. We give them so many resources, like my school gives them computers to a lot of students, and sometimes it's difficult to make them understand the privileges they have. Sometimes it's difficult to make them see that maybe kids in Venezuela don't have those same opportunities because we're given so much so often.
So growing up in El Paso is something every student should have a chance to do. I'm from the Northeast, so some of the stuff that we deal with the border, we don't really get in the Northeast side of El Paso. I attend Parkland High School. I think I'm the youngest group of everyone. I'm 15 years old. So I've been always attended the Ysleta Independent School District as a kindergarten student. I went to North Star Elementary, which is also in the Northeast. And I was always the biggest person in the classroom. And being African American, I was the only African American in the classroom. And sometimes I don't think I was able to put me into the best of my abilities for my teachers and my classmates. It was hard going through elementary school. And like Dr. De La Torre said, we have the best teachers in our school district. Once I got to middle school, things started to change. I was facing some challenges with myself. And I was taught by 2 Region 19 Teachers of the Year, Ms. Raquel Jimenez and Michelle Sandoval. And those 2 teachers really helped me push myself. And they asked me, Tyrone, how about you come join our T-STEM program? I didn't know anything about engineering. I did T-STEM for about a year. I was Texas State champion for 2 years, 7th and 8th grade. That was a big accomplishment for me. Middle school was such a blessing to have teachers that believed in me and pushed me. We have teachers in this district that are so wonderful, and every student that comes to the Ysleta Independent School District is able to push themselves, and they are allowed to learn and get an education. I'm a big believer in education. My dad has a master's, my mom has a bachelor's. My sister goes to school in Kansas City, Missouri right now, working to get her bachelor's degree. El Paso is a really diverse community. We have a bunch of people here who like to challenge each other, push each other. It's such a blessing to be able to grow up in El Paso, especially me being from the Northeast. A lot of people from the Northeast, we don't really get that much love and consideration. We have one high school in Northeast El Paso, one Ysleta school in the Northeast El Paso. And that's the only thing I can say is that the teachers here, the community for our district, it really pushed me. And now I'm in high school now, and I'm not afraid to do extracurricular activities, go out for sports, and do things that I want to do because of my middle school teachers, and they helped me overcome those challenges. Thank you.
thank all of you all for your stories. We have a couple of questions to be able to ask any of you all that want to be able to jump in, and then we'll have some summarizing statements. Really a call out or a challenge to all of us that are sitting in here. One of the questions that I have for you all is because you all we've really picked all of you all to be spokespeople for the parents and students of El Paso. So what is one thing that you feel that we need to do to be able to help the schools in El Paso? What is one thing that you all feel that we need to do to be able to help the schools in El Paso? As a parent perspective or as a student perspective, what else is it that you feel that we need to do better?
Libraries. Libraries are very important. Keep those libraries opened. Kids don't have sometimes a safe haven to do their homework. Growing up with Ryan growing up with me, we would go to the library every weekend, weekdays, do homework, have your Wi-Fi there. Why are the libraries closed on Sundays? Public libraries need to be open on Sundays. I'm a big advocate for that. All through Ryan's school life, Sundays are the prime opportunity for these children to have a safe place with resources that they can do their homework, get ready for a successful week. Keep your libraries open. Keep libraries open in the schools. 2 hours extra in the evening. Instead of commuting home, have them do their homework there. I'm a big advocate for that. Libraries, literature, reading, keep them open. Open libraries. I'd like to add opportunities for younger children to participate in clubs, extracurricular activities, giving back to the community. Example, Save the Earth is an outstanding organization that my son participated since kinder. Save the Earth, they would go with the teacher around their community picking up trash. But that gets them involved in socializing, making friends, being part of the community. I think there's a lot of clubs and extracurriculars at the high school level and upper level, but I would like to see that instilled in young children, starting as early as pre-K. Giving back to the community because that gives them the opportunity to think of leadership roles, and it prepares them when they reach the high school level and just to give back. And I would like to see that implemented. Sure. Thank you.
So I'm not an expert, but from personal experience, I've read that in New Mexico, in some border cities, they actually have programs where buses pick up the kids from the international bridge. And I would love to see that here because we have a lot of students crossing daily. And one more thing is more funding for early colleges. Early colleges are a great opportunity for students of low income and of adversity to keep on going to college. And that's the most important thing about education right now is keep on going with college. Thank you.
So I'm going to pose this next question to Tyrone and Edward. When you consider your educational experience here in El Paso, what stands out to you as the most important factor in your success that you mentioned earlier? So I'm going to say that again. When you consider your educational experience here in El Paso, what stands out to you as your most important factor in the success that you mentioned to us earlier?
I believe what factors to me the most, especially our teachers, is a belief system. Every teacher I had has always believed in me, has always had high expectations for me, and it has pushed me in ability to always strive for the best. Like I told you guys before, I'm a big believer in education, and sometimes there's teachers who don't believe in their kids, who don't challenge their kids. And we need that more in our schools. In my school, my teachers always challenged me to do the extra. You have to think about it in different perspectives. My teachers have always, not always taught me the education criteria, but has always taught me life lessons that I can use when I grow up and get older. And that's what we need more in our schools is a belief system.
Just to add on, the staff, including as janitors or the lunch ladies, when they serve us the food in our cafeteria, they're so polite. They greet you politely, where it cheers up your day. If you're having a bad day or you just had bombed a test or something, they'll cheer you up. Or the janitors are so sociable. They keep our schools clean so we could work in a clean environment. Or staff, teachers, like my robotics teacher, our first year, on my sophomore year, we went to Kentucky to compete in the VEX robotics competition. It was once of a lifetime opportunity. I enjoyed that moment because of our teachers pushing us to the limit, things that we didn't believe we could do.
Thank you. So this is your last statements that you're going to say. You have all of these people in this building here. You have central office, you have Dr. De La Torre, you have people that have traveled here. Some may not come back to El Paso ever, ever, ever again. We hope they do because it's good for our economy. So we hope that they do come back. But we want you all to leave a statement with them that when they think about our future, you all are our future, and they think about education, and they think about when they're making decisions that affect our educational system, when they think about anything in regards to borderland topics, students of what we call our brown students, not only our Hispanic students, our African American students, our white students, all of our students. What is your call? What is the charge that you have to all of us as governing board members? There's people here from Department of Education, and there's just regular old people that are here that are voting citizens. What is your statement or your charge to everyone that is sitting here in this building as our future? Those of you all will be taking care of us. All right? So what is your charge to all of us? And your Ryan will be taking care of us.
So I took a course on immigration, and the thing I mainly got out of that was people aren't illegal, laws make people illegal. And I just want to ask you to, in the future, make sure you address our education system not only for the middle income to higher income white students, but students of color, students who might not have access to a quiet room, and students who might need libraries, students who might need an extra lunch at the end of the day. That'd be great. Thank you.
That if we have the opportunity, that we will take the opportunity and use the opportunity, use it wisely, and become something successful in the future.
Something that my mom always tells me is échale ganas, and that means give it your best. Here we are hard workers. We want to succeed, and I thank you for coming all the way over here in El Paso and seeing the reality of who we are and what we do and what we can do. I please beg you to look at us and see our potential and invest in our future. Thank you.
Where there's a will, there's a way. Obstacles are opportunities. Parents play a big role, and it's so exciting to see these young adults. And I'm very proud to be a parent. And I'm very lucky to have had a school district supporting my Ryan James with great teachers. Parents are important, teachers are important, principals are important, superintendents are important. We're all important. Please take into consideration the responsibility you have. We have great children. We have a great future. Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, first I want to thank you. Just taking your time to come and talk to us. You were very inspirational. As a teacher, I cannot wait to go back to my babies. You make me miss them. But anyway, I have a couple questions. First of all, your determination to be successful where did that come from? Because unfortunately, there are so many young people who they have the opportunity and they don't take it. So first of all, where does that come from? And also, we heard from Jesus what you want to do when you get to adulthood. I'd like to hear where you guys are. And also, Pedro, it was so nice to hear your perspective as a student as when it comes to test scores. And I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you want to be a teacher?
No, I don't. I adore teaching. I've been a tutor for a couple of months now, like 5. I adore the kids. I adore making a little fun of them from time to time. I adore seeing the awe moment in their face when they're struggling on an equation in algebra and suddenly they're like, I got it. It's phenomenal. However, I'm not sure it's something I'd be able to do because seeing how some of these teachers have to cope with some of the students every day, especially some of the students with the bad attitudes and some of the students who, like you said, don't really care and don't have the determination, it would be difficult. But maybe, but probably not. I'd like to, so like my partner here, I'd like to actually be well, kind of different. I used to want to compose music, and then I realized I'm not that musically talented. And what I actually want to do is be a screenwriter, and hopefully also win an Oscar someday. Maybe we'll be there together. Who knows? So yeah, that's cool.
Nice. Thank you, guys. I apologize up front. I'm repping Bel Air here a little bit. I apologize for that. One of the things, and a second thing too, is Dartmouth is really doing a great job in cultivating talent from this area. We met a young woman from Bel Air yesterday who's going to Dartmouth. She's going to be a freshman there next year. So that's nice to see that they're expanding their reach outside of the Northeast. The question I had, though, had to do with instruction, and specifically, and Tyrone, you alluded to this a little bit about your teachers and both embracing you and pushing you at the same time. So if you could talk a little bit more about the, not only the teachers, but the climate of a school that you see as the most important in getting the most out of students, that would be very helpful.
Well, I think the school is the most important part, and when you go to school with a great community of people, and you just go to school every day and you have people, not just the teaching, but the administrators, the custodians, the janitors, the coaches. We have a great community in the Parkland area, and everyone is happy, they love each other. When you have a kid that comes to school and they feel safe around a certain group of people, they feel comfortable around that group of people. Me personally, when I was in elementary school, I wasn't so comfortable. When I got up to middle school, I felt comfortable around my teachers, so it allowed me to do things that I have never done before. And then when I started telling myself, okay, I want to stay, I was like, okay, I can do something like this. I can do it. And you need a good group of people in your community to be able to be successful. And I think that's one thing about El Paso is that it doesn't matter any school you go to, you're always going to you need a good group, a community of people around you in order to succeed. And that's one thing that we have at Parkland that helps me become successful. Thank you.
Can you hear me? For my entire high school career, I had this one teacher. He was Mr. Kane. He passed away a couple of years ago. And I'm thankful to Ysleta District for naming a building at Ysleta High School after him. Ysleta, for a long time, wasn't one of the best schools. And we were known one of the lower, not as intelligent schools in the district. And sometimes we still get that rap, even though HiQ, which is trivia and debate, are by far, I think, our 2 strongest teams, because HiQ won 3rd place at a national contest last year. Debate's consistently winning at tournaments around the city. And I think it's great that we're getting so much support for the fine arts. We just got a new building, which is beautiful, and I'm thankful for that. And we're getting support for sports to be able to travel. I just want to make sure that teachers from academics also get the funding to be able to travel around the country because it's hard sometimes. Because when it's for academics, for some reason, I'm not sure why, and I'm not sure if this is around the country, just from my experience, it's more different. It's harder for certain groups to be able to travel. It's maybe they don't have the money to go to nationals one year. Maybe they should be taking 5 people for a team and they can only take 4. They can't afford an alternate. And I think if we can somehow manage funding to make sure that every group that's doing something awesome gets the funding they need to be able to compete at a national level, I think that would drive more teachers to do something that they love, to do something for 42 years and continue loving everything they do every day.
I agree to that. I do think academics need funding in order to go out of town. I think 2 years ago we had to cut 2 people because we didn't have enough money to bring them to nationals. And it's not like every day you get a student who gets to go to Washington D.C. in order to compete in a competition. And the district does a good job of funding for athletics, but we just need a little bit more for our academics, like this young man said over here. I agree with you on that one.
We need to say thank you to you guys. You guys kept thanking us, but the real thanks is to you because you have grounded the work that this committee should be doing around the power and importance of education in our nation. So thank you for doing that. My question for you is, I've taken copious notes, so I hope when I go back to South Carolina, I can razz my students that I've taken more notes than they take in my class, because there's so many powerful stories. But one that really struck me was, Pedro, you sharing about your 2nd grade experience in the word candy. Because what this board is tasked with doing is assessing what our students can know and can do across this country. And the reality is sometimes that can be difficult because of cultural barriers that a rich, heterogeneous nation with diversity like ours has. So what I would love to hear from you is, from your experience, how can schools at the school level, at the district level, the state level, how can we better ensure that culture isn't a barrier to students showing what they know and can do, and instead it enhances our capacity to measure what you know and do?
Thank you for asking that question. I think when I was in 2nd grade, that was my first year in an English school. I had previously been in Juarez, which is right across, and suddenly I moved to Port Arthur, Texas. My teacher, Miss Norman, was a wonderful lady, but she spoke no Spanish. So when I arrived and she was like, I think it was 3 months into the school year, she asked, "Do you want candy?" And I said, "¿Qué?" which is what? And with time, she was very nice, but she didn't quite understand that I was having a difficulty I didn't have a difficulty understanding that 3 + 7 was 10. I had a difficulty that I didn't know what 3 was, that the number 3, I couldn't translate it at the time. And so what I think we can do is make sure we hire teachers that have an understanding that not every student is going to be capable of doing everything as fast as the other students because maybe they have that language barrier. And that's why I say about test scores that sometimes they might not be reflective of how good a teacher is. If someone in, let's say, in Boston, if a teacher is speaking there and everyone of the students knows how to do an assignment because they can understand everything, great, they can move on to the next assignment. But in El Paso and in some communities, you have a teacher who explains the assignment for half of the students who understand English, and then they have to slowly go over it again for the students that didn't quite get it, and then they have to maybe go over it in Spanish. And that's a problem. Yeah, and then you see the scores, and you see that their scores are significantly lower than other students, other teachers, and you say, okay, this teacher isn't getting the job done, when in fact we're having a problem that we might not be getting the appropriate funding, first of all, and second of all, we might have a curriculum that addresses specific things that they might not need as much until they actually learn English. So I don't know if maybe an removing something that's not as necessary as learning English and putting more English classes first would work. I'm not quite sure how that would do in research, but definitely preparing teachers to teach students that don't quite understand English yet and might not for a while, and having them be kind to the students, because if you get a teacher that tells you, if you don't speak English in my class, don't even participate, don't talk, that's a problem. If any teacher ever told me that, I'm sure I would never once speak in the class. I'd just be quiet in the back, and I wouldn't care. You know, I'd be like, I don't care about this, I don't care about school, I don't care about being here. And that, I have not really seen that in my experience in high school, because my teachers were phenomenal. My teacher was great, and that's where, again, I thank you guys for that, because I know you guys had to do with it. But going to your question a bit too, one of the reasons I tried so hard is because I knew if I didn't, we'd just go back to Mexico. It was that simple. And that's the case for a lot of people in the border that, you know, they kind of, at points, a lot of them do try very hard. The vast majority do, but there's some that don't, and it's a greater number than I wish it would be. And if we could have some, I don't know what the research says, but if we could have the appropriate funding for those students to help them do better, I think the entire schools would start doing a better job. And if school starts getting a better job, you know, more funding for them, and it would continue a cycle. And that's what I would hope for. And hopefully that were to happen.
Yes, so we thank you all.
Thank
Yes.
you for a fabulous program. It's huge, man. It's a real treat, and we learned a lot. Thank you very, very much.
Yes, thank you all so much.